Welcome to Sales Bites by Journey, where we talk about everything you need to know to be a killer at sales. I'm your host, Will Jenkins. Let's get it. Hello. Welcome to Sales Bites by Journey. Today we have Abby Hafenbretl, Account Development Manager at Lean Solutions Group. Abby, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Will.
Of course. It's been really cool to see your career journey over the last few years as I've become acquainted with you. Amazing what you've done in your sales career. So glad to have you on to drop some sales bites for the group. Before we get started though, I'm familiar with you, would love a 10,000 foot overview of your sales career in freight and a little bit of info on what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So I started in freight in 2016. I basically have been outside sales, so selling direct to shippers up until this past November. So November 2023. So quite a few years in the industry. I started with Cavalry Logistics. I was there for 6 years, did the whole merge acquisition with Universal. After that, I went to RTI as director of sales to help reestablish their brokerage. Shortly after that, they were purchased by Fitzmark. Gotta love these mergers.
Yeah.
And so then when that was happening, the executive leadership team from Cavalry Logistics and I came together and we joined Sage Freight. So we started in October 2021. And in 2 years, we grew very significantly. We bought an asset company. We grew up to, I think when I left, we were right around 150 people, maybe 175.
That's awesome.
And we did a lot of our back office in Pakistan. So we set up an office in Pakistan and we moved a lot of our operations to them to stay lean the last 2 years. So that really has helped provide the base and the foundation for what I'm doing now, which is really consulting with our VIP customers at Lean to help them uncover where in their operations they might be overpaying in the States and where there's opportunity to move it near shore to Colombia or any of our offices in Latin America.
That's awesome. And for reference, during your different tenures in sales and overseeing teams, what type of clients were you selling to on the freight side?
Most of my customers were the Fortune 500 shippers, so enterprise level, which honestly the past couple of years has not been great because the small to mid-sized shippers are really the ones that were the greatest just because there's not as much red tape, there's not as much competition. But most of my relationships lie in the mega brand names.
Awesome. You were selling to the big dogs out there.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
All of them.
Nice. Awesome. Well, we look forward to digging in here and seeing some tidbits that you have about how to get into those accounts as we start talking about some of your sales tips.
Awesome.
Well, today we're going to talk about a couple of different fun topics. The first one is going to be networking and conferences. So funny enough, I think I may have met you in person for the first time at a networking event, or it was at a networking event. Yeah. So we got acquainted through LinkedIn, a lot of similar network with people that we know in the freight game. But when we talked about topics that you felt comfortable kind of giving people tips on, networking and conferences is one that came up. So I would love to hear a little bit about your strategy or anything that you find to be effective when you're going to go to a networking event and just meet some new cool people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I could be a professional networker in a certain life. I don't know what it is, but it's like a high every time I go to a conference and I just get the opportunity to network with other people. And it was such a passion, in fact, that I helped to start Nashville Transportation Club just because I wanted more practice talking about my company to other people when I was starting out in sales. So love networking, love talking about networking. And I think it's a huge missed opportunity for a lot of companies that are trying to get their name or their brand out. And I also think a lot of companies probably don't know how to correctly do conferences. They may send 20 people, set up a booth, pay $100,000 for every conference and not get any ROIs. So the first thing when I think about conferences is like making sure the ROI makes sense, right? Don't send 20 people to a tech conference when you're trying to land shippers. It's not going to work. When you have the people situated to go to conference, it's really important to get people that are go-getters, that are outgoing, that will work the crowd, because all the deals and all the conversations are going to happen at the bar, after the bar, at a bar that I set up. So it's really, you have to be kind of that socialite person. So whenever I go to a conference, some of the key things I make sure I have situated and a little bit prepped in my mind and in my, CRM before I head out. So I want to make sure I have anywhere from like 5 to 10 anchor meetings when I go to a conference. And of course, that's going to depend on the amount of prep time you have, if you get the attendee list. I have gone to a couple conferences in the past few months that it's just a kind of a game time last minute decision. So I didn't have the prep I necessarily would have loved to have. But once you're able to have that prep and have a couple meetings situated, you want to make sure you're setting clear goals. So why are you going to this conference? Are you trying to, again, land shippers? Are you trying to just get your name out? Are you trying to tell people about your tech? And then how do you plan on doing that? So are you just going to text everybody when you get down there? Are you going to, send emails a couple weeks in advance, slowly wean off until maybe they see your name and then in person reach out to them? There's a lot of different tactics for going into conferences, but I think the most important thing is to prepare and have a plan in place.
Absolutely. You mentioned that before. Conferences are not cheap. Travel is not cheap. And a lot of times if you have a booth, you're paying a pretty penny, but you might be stuck there and then you're not going out and bringing people or having those conversations. So what have you found to be effective in terms of just striking up conversations out on the floor at a conference, or maybe at a lot of times they have after the conference, they'll have a happy hour or something like that. How do you strike up combos with people?
So I am a big believer in connecting people. So, and it's a really easy way to kind of make an intro and then also make a follow-up with your lead. So, now that I'm not in freight anymore, it's so easy for me to kind of make these connections. So you want to obviously make sure you're helping yourself, but then also adding value to other people is how they're going to trust you, how they're going to take your recommendations seriously. So that's something I really think is a huge competitive advantage. Now, I will say most like C-levels, they wouldn't probably tell you to go to a conference and make everybody else connections.
Right.
But when you're at a conference, you don't want to come off as a salesperson. You don't want to come up to somebody and start selling your service, because they're here trying to meet with their current providers. Most of the time, that's their only job there. And then any additional providers they meet with, you have to build that relationship first before you come at them with, here's what I do and here's who I do it for and this is what I can do for you. And it's like, hold on, we don't even have a relationship established and I'm at the bar on a Saturday night at a conference.
Right.
Like, chill. Let's first, who are you? Do you have kids? At a conference, it is so important to, I think, get the nitty gritty and understand kind of who they are as a person so that you're able to cater to their communication style, how they want to be followed up with after the fact. Yeah.
What's interesting is, as a broker, when you're going to a conference, ideally, typically you're looking for a shipper, right? You want to find a relationship, and it's probably someone that you've been selling to or someone that you feel like is a good opportunity for the company. And a lot of times they're running away from you. They're like, I don't want to talk to any carriers that we're not transacting with today, because, you know how it is at the conference. They're like the most sought after people. So it can be frustrating for them because they've got all these people coming at them. And you mentioned something super valuable, right? If you can find ways to make strategic introductions that kind of bring their walls down, they're not just looking at you as this very aggressive, over the top sales professional, you might introduce them to something that's really valuable. And now it makes it easier for you to have your follow-up conversation about the services you all provide.
Yep, absolutely. And they're gonna have their walls down this time when you email them, where the opposite is, man, they already tried to sell me at the conference. When they follow up, I'm definitely not gonna reach out to them. So I already know what their whole spiel and what they're trying to do. And that's also why connecting others is so huge, because word of mouth and referrals in our industry means everything. That's what it is. So
everything.
Yeah.
So here's a good one. Conferences typically have a lot going on. So you've got the show floor, walk around and see what the booths are. Obviously, you've got meetings set up with contacts that you're trying to sell to current active customers or maybe new opportunities. But then there's like educational stuff going on too, which can be helpful. So how do you balance your time between going to a couple of sessions that you're like, this is valuable, and then getting out there and making sure that you're actually meeting people?
So I look for, first and foremost, when I was in freight, I always look for any of my prospects that are speaking, so that, boom, an easy follow-up. Hey, I loved what you said about X, Y, and Z, da, 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 da. It comes across as you respect what they said, and you're going to take it and apply it then into your operations and use their advice. And then, people love to hear that. People have egos, and they like knowing that someone listened and is going to do this. So I think it is important to sit through a couple of those for sure. And then obviously the big time ones too, like at Food Shippers, all the shippers listen to Bob Costello, and everyone takes Bob's insight and applies it to their business and how they're going to structure the next year. So that's another big one. Again, an easy follow-up. Other than that, I try to not stay in many sessions, because the hallway is where it's at. I've landed so many customers just hanging out in the hallway, because at the end of the day, again, a lot of these shippers, yes, it's a conference, but they're also kind of, it's like their free time a little bit, where they don't have to be so on all the time. And some of these guys are just trying to hang out,
Absolutely.
And so I think hanging out in the hallways, meeting people in the lobby, anywhere that you can have a conversation, I run to. Because at the end of the day, if you're sitting in a session, that's an hour wasted that you could be talking to somebody else.
I couldn't agree more. We were at Manifest and probably left with 8 or so contracts, and all of it happened passing through just really having casual conversations in the hallways between meetings and stuff. So
yeah. And again, their guards down. They're not expecting a salesperson to come up to them and sell to them. They're just in the hallway like, hey, what are you doing? Oh yeah. Cool.
Totally. Okay. So to sum it up, first points you made around putting yourself out there, you talked about the Nashville Transportation. Is it the Nashville Transportation Committee?
Nashville Transportation Club. Yep.
Awesome. So put yourself out there, be outgoing, or collab with people that are very outgoing, just to have those conversations and strike up opportunities. The second thing you talked about was make introductions to people, and that might make it easier for you to sell to them because you brought value to what they're doing. And then the third thing is maybe don't sit in all the sessions. Find something valuable, maybe if one of your contacts is speaking, but still roam the halls to find ways to connect with people.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other sales bites around networking and conferences you want to leave the group with?
I would always try to add value. Obviously when you're a brokerage, don't add value to other brokerages unless it's outside of your customer base. Like, I'm not telling you to go give out all your information, but figure out ways to add value to everybody you speak with, whether, again, that's connecting or, hey, did you hear about X, Y, and Z? Another big way I have found a lot of success is I connect my shipper partners together when I was at, freight asset and brokerage companies, because the reality is they don't really network with each other, which is wild. You think of, I have buddies here in Chicago. I'm like, you guys would be best friends if you knew each other and you're at the same conferences. So I've actually hooked up a lot of those connections. And then that just goes even deeper. And now these guys it's like I'm creating my own little posse of
Oh yeah.
friends that is our, everyone trusts everyone in this circle that we're all referring each other to. So it's really just creating a community of like-minded individuals that you can trust, and then you continually see them at these conferences and you continually add value. And pretty soon, at Food Shippers, it was like, if I was still in freight, I could have brought in multi-millions of dollars. I was hanging out till 3 a.m. with massive shippers that I
Yeah.
was so close to landing at my last company. So it's just, it's really cool. And again, it just is so much building relationships and not expecting anything in return.
Absolutely. Those are all really, really good tidbits of information. Appreciate all of them around networking and conferences. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.